I want to start today with a challenge, a genuine challenge for you.
No.
I want you to imagine putting on a pair of headphones, pressing play, and for, say, 10 minutes, nothing really happens.
Right?
No beat drops, no catchy chorus, no one telling you about their heartbreak, just a low, shifting hum.
For most people, that would sound like a mistake. Like the file's broken or your headphone jack is loose.
Exactly. We are so conditioned biologically, culturally, to think music has to go somewhere. It's a journey, right? Point A to point B.
Oh, we got the payoff.
We want the payoff. But today, we're looking at a source material that basically argues we've got it all wrong. We are doing a deep dive into the world of modular drone.
And to be clear, we aren't just talking about a specific genre of electronic music here. We're basing this on a really dense, fascinating column by Mysterian on experimental drones. And it argues that this isn't just music. It's this collision of physics, of history, and a totally different philosophy of time.
Right. The core argument here, and this is the thing I really had to get my head around, is that while most music is about events, drone music is all about state transitions.
That distinction is everything. State transition versus event.
But before we get into the heavy philosophy, let's ground this. Because when I hear drone, I honestly think of a boring, monotonous noise.
Yeah.
Like my refrigerator running or the AC unit at the office. Why would anyone want to listen to that for pleasure?
It's a totally fair question, but the source points out that humans have been obsessed with this boring sound for centuries, long before synthesizers, long before electricity even.
You mean like religious chanting, that kind of thing?
Partially, yes. But think even more fundamentally. Think about the roots of acoustic instruments. Like, think about the bagpipes.
The instrument everyone loves to hate.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But just think about how it works mechanically. You have the chanter playing the melody, sure. But underneath all that, you have those drone pipes.
That constant note.
That constant, unmoving low note. It anchors the entire acoustic space. You see it in medieval organum, too. It's like a sonic floor that you stand on. It implies stability.
It creates a sense of space.
Yeah.
It's not the focus, but it holds everything else up.
Exactly. But the source makes a really interesting leap to the 20th century. It argues that our obsession with drone changed because our entire world changed. We entered the machine age, the Industrial Revolution.
Okay, so suddenly the word just got a lot louder.
Much louder. But specifically, it got mechanically louder. Suddenly, the soundscape of humanity wasn't, birds and wind and people talking. It was factories, trains, dynamos, electrical hums.
Wow.
We were surrounded by constant mechanical noise. The environment itself became a drone.
That is a really cool perspective. So composers started thinking, hey, maybe we shouldn't ignore this texture. Maybe the texture is the music.
Precisely. They realized that this noise was the soundtrack of modern life. But here's the problem with trying to replicate that musically. Acoustic instruments are, they're terrible at it.
Because they need to breathe.
Because of the limits of the human body. I mean, if you try to hold a drone note on a flute, you'll pass out. You run out of breath. A violin runs out of bow length. You have to change direction, and that breaks the sound.
So acoustic instruments are limited by physics.
Totally. But a machine.
A machine has infinite breath.
An electronic oscillator can sustain a wave forever. The source argues that electronic music was basically destined to explore this genre because it's the only thing that can physically do it. It's the only instrument that can match the persistence of the industrial world.
That's such a cool image. Infinite breath. But there was a catch early on, right? The source mentions that while they could make the sound last forever, they couldn't really make it interesting.
Right. In the early days, with tape loops, you had sustain, but it was just static. It was a test tone. To make it art, to make it music, you needed the breakthrough. You needed voltage control.
Okay, define that for us, because that sounds like an electrician's term, not a musical one.
It is, but it's also the big bang of modern synthesis.
Yeah.
Before voltage control, if you wanted to change the pitch of an oscillator, you had to physically turn a knob with your hand.
Which is charming, I guess, but limiting.
Very limiting. Voltage control means you can use an electrical signal, a kind of ghost in the machine, to turn that knob for you. It allowed the sound to change and morph and evolve, all without a human constantly touching it.
It allowed the drone to become a living thing.
Yes.
And this leads us to what I think is the most dramatic part of the source material. It describes this sort of philosophical war in the world of synthesizers, the tale of two systems.
Oh, yeah. This is one of the great rivalries of music history. It's like the Beatles versus the Stones, or Mac versus PC, but for, synth nerds. You have Robert Moog on the East Coast and Don Buchla on the West Coast.
And this isn't just about branding. The source says they represent two completely opposite philosophies of what a drone should even be. Let's start with Moog. Even if you don't know synths, you know the name Moog. It's iconic.
Right. The Moog philosophy is built around one word: stability. Moog wanted to make this new tech accessible to musicians, so he added a keyboard.
Which seems totally normal to us now. Of course, a synth has a keyboard.
It does now, but at the time, that was a very specific choice. It meant he was trying to fit this new, weird electricity into the old box of Western music theory.
You hit a key, you get a note.
Exactly. The signal flow is linear. It starts at the oscillator, goes through a filter to make it sound nice, and then out the amplifier.
It's orderly, it's polite.
It represents controlled duration. In the context of drone music, a Moog system is like a calm ocean or a steady sunrise. You get this rich, stable tone. You might slowly open a filter to make it a little brighter. It's predictable, it's beautiful, and it's harmonic.
Okay, so Moog is the reliable architect. He builds a house you can actually live in. Then you have Don Buchla. And from what I'm reading here, Buchla was, let's just say, the wild child of the West Coast.
Wild is putting it mildly. Buchla looked at a keyboard and basically said, why would I use an interface designed 300 years ago for strings and hammers to control electricity?
He hated the keyboard.
Hated it. He thought it limited what the machine could truly do.
So if there's no keyboard, how do you play it?
You don't really play it, not in the traditional sense. You guide it. Buchla systems are full of what the source calls function generators and random voltage sources.
That sounds chaotic.
It is. If Moog is all about stability, Buchla is about instability. A Buchla drone isn't a steady line. The source describes it as a fluctuating field. It's organic, it's jittery, it's unpredictable, it's full of uncertainty.
So if we use a nature analogy, Moog is the ground you're standing on and Buchla is the weather hitting you in the face.
That's a perfect way to put it. And the source argues that for modular drone to really work, to really capture that feeling of existence, you need the tension between these two things.
You need both.
You need the stability of the Moog oscillator, but you want the chaos of the Buchla modulation.
So the art isn't in choosing one or the other. It's in the conflict between order and chaos.
Exactly.
Okay, so we have the machines, we have the history, but I want to drill down into the actual listening experience because I've listened to some of these tracks to prep for this, and I'll be honest, at first glance, it really sounds like nothing is happening. It sounds static.
And that's the illusion. The source calls this differential change.
Which means?
It means the change is happening, but it's happening just below the threshold of your immediate attention. Think of it like a flower blooming. If you sit and stare at it, it looks frozen. You can't see the petals moving.
Right.
But if you look away and then you look back an hour later, it's a completely different shape.
So it's change without events.
Right. Technically, they do this using LFO's low-frequency oscillators, basically an automated signal that goes up and down. But they set the speed to, well, glacial.
So instead of a wah-wah-wah sound,
it's a wah that takes 5, maybe 10 minutes to complete a single cycle. You don't hear the event of the change. You just suddenly realize, wait, the texture is brighter now than it was 5 minutes ago. You experience the process of change, not the moment of it.
That is trippy. It really forces you to pay attention in a completely different way. And that leads us to this term I flagged in the notes, spectral center of gravity. That sounds incredibly sci-fi. What does that mean in plain English?
It does sound intense. Okay, so in normal music, pitch is a dot on a map. Middle C is middle C. It's a coordinate.
Right.
In modular drone, pitch is more like a cloud. A sound isn't just one note, it's made up of a fundamental tone, plus a whole bunch of harmonics overtones floating above it. And in this genre, because of how they use filters, they are constantly shifting the volume and intensity of those harmonics.
So the note isn't changing, but the color or the weight of the note is shifting.
Exactly. The center of gravity moves from the low, dark frequencies to the high, shimmering ones, and back again. It's this shifting cloud of frequencies anchored by a center. It creates movement without changing the melody at all.
And that leads to the physical sensation of the sound, right? The beats. And to be clear, we aren't talking about drum beats here. There's no 44 time.
No, we are talking about physics, phase interference.
Okay, explain that like I'm 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Imagine two people walking next to each other. If they step at the exact same time, their steps amplify each other. They're in phase. But if one person walks just a tiny bit slower, eventually their steps will clash. 1 foot down, 1 foot up. They cancel each other out.
Okay, yeah, I can picture that.
When sound waves do that, when two oscillators are slightly out of tune, they clash. The sound waves physically cancel each other out and then reinforce each other, and it creates a rhythmic pulsing. A wah, wah, wah.
So the rhythm isn't programmed, it's just math happening in the air.
Yes, it's purely physical. And to bring it back to our Moog versus Buchla fight on a Moog, those beats are very predictable because the oscillators are so stable, it's a regular pulse. But on a Buchla, because of that instability, the beats are irregular.
Like a heartbeat that skips.
Or like wind gusts. It's organic. And the source says this difference is crucial for how we perceive time in the music. Is it mechanical time or is it living time?
This idea of a living sound brings us to the part of the source material that I found the most provocative, but also the most confusing. It talks about the philosophy of the patch.
This is my favorite part. This is where the musician has to let go of their ego.
So for anyone who doesn't know, a patch is basically the mess of cables connecting all the different parts of the synthesizer.
Right. But in this genre, the patch isn't just a setup. The source has this incredible quote: "The patch is not a score, but a device containing time."
A device containing time. That sounds like something out of a time travel movie.
It effectively is. In Modular Drone, you aren't playing every single note. You are routing outputs back into inputs. You're creating feedback loops.
So the machine is literally listening to itself.
Yes, and this creates a self-generating state. Once you patch those cables, the machine starts making decisions based on the rules you set. The artist's job isn't to play every note or dictate every moment. It's to set the initial conditions.
It's like setting up a complex row of dominoes, but the dominoes somehow set themselves back up again.
Or a better analogy might be gardening. You know, you plant the seeds, you water the soil, you make sure the sunlight is right, but you don't pull the plant out of the ground with your fingers, you let it grow. You just intervene when necessary.
That requires a lot of trust for a musician. You have to be okay with not being in total control.
That's the dialogue. The source describes the artist's role not as control, but as a conversation with the system. The art form is finding the balance between autonomy, letting the machine run wild, and intervention, reaching out and just tweaking a knob.
If you intervene too much, you kill the organic nature of it.
Exactly, you stifle it. But if you don't intervene enough, it might just dissolve into chaos or silence. It's a really delicate balance.
So let's talk about the listener again. We've built this self-generating machine. It's humming along. It's arguing with itself. How are we supposed to consume this? Because I feel like if I put this on at a party, people would leave.
Yeah, don't put this on at a party. You don't consume this music. You sort of inhabit it. The Force talks a lot about space, time, and the listener.
It mentions panning, right?
Yeah.
Moving the sound left to right.
But not just moving it for a cheap effect. Slow modulation of panning makes the sound feel like it's drifting or diffusing. It stops feeling like it's coming from a speaker and starts feeling like a weather system in the room.
And what about reverb? Usually, reverb is just to make things sound pretty, like you're singing in a cathedral.
In this genre, reverb is a structural tool. The source calls it a device to extend time.
Explain that.
Well, if a sound has a massive reverb tail, you can't tell when the sound actually stops and the echo begins. It just blurs the edges. It erases the boundaries of events. And it contributes to this feeling of infinity.
So it all comes back to blurring the lines, blurring the pitch, blurring the time, blurring the start and the stop.
Yes. Because there are no bars or beats, the listener loses their external clock. You aren't tapping your foot to a beat. You stop measuring time by beats per minute and start measuring it by, well, existence. You are simply floating in the acoustic space.
Which explains why this works so well in art galleries. The source mentions installations.
Right. Modular drone works incredibly well in installation contexts because of that lack of structure. I mean, if you walk into a gallery to see a painting, you don't need to see the painter start the first brushstroke to understand the image. You just look at it.
It's completely nonlinear.
Exactly. Modular drone is the sonic equivalent. You can walk in, spend 10 minutes inside the sound, and then walk out. You don't need to hear the beginning to understand the middle. You just enter the stream and then you leave it.
But let's be real for a second. The source also touches on live performance. And visually, it's just a person standing in front of a box of cables. It's not exactly Taylor Swift.
No.
There are no dancers.
There is no choreography. But the visual of the patch is important. The audience sees the cables. They see the flashing lights. They see the guts of the machine. It emphasizes that this is a technical process. You are watching a laboratory experiment, not a pop concert.
You're watching the engineer tend the garden.
Ideally, yes.
So we're reaching the end of our dive here. We've gone from bagpipes to vocalists, from factories to galleries, and the source material wraps up with a perspective from Monumental Movement Records, or MMR. And they take a pretty hard stance on this whole thing.
They do. They take a very critical, almost academic stance on it. They view modular drone as a critical practice. Meaning they argue that this isn't about emotion. It's not about making you cry or feel happy or pumped up. They value structure analysis over sentimentality.
So sound is a medium for thought, not just something you're supposed to feel.
Exactly. It's all about the inseparable nature of the device, the synth, time, and sound. You can't have one without the others.
It's a bit heady, but I kind of love it. It elevates the synthesizer from a toy or just a keyboard replacement to a philosophical tool.
It really does. It asks us to stop looking for the hook, stop looking for the distraction, and just appreciate the texture of time itself.
So here's the final thought I want to leave everyone with. The source gave us this provocative nugget. In this genre, sound does not progress, it continues to exist.
It continues to exist. That really does sum it all up.
So my challenge to you, the listener, is this. Today, try listening to your environment. Not the music on your phone, but the room you are in right now. Don't hear it as a series of annoyances, a car honking, a server humming, a fan whirring. Try to hear it all as one continuous, shifting state of existence.
You might find that the world is composing a pretty interesting patch all on its own.
Exactly. Thanks for diving deep with us.
Always a pleasure.
We'll see you next time.